All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco Giant video. In fact, since it's a giant video, maybe we'll switch to giant colors. There we go. How about there? There you go. We're going to talk a little Jung Hoo Lee, done for the year. So we'll give you some thoughts on Jung Hoo Lee coming up next and where the Giants go from here. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera, and they're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get yourself some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. All right, Giants dealt a really bad blow the other day when they lose Jung Hoo Lee, their starting center fielder for the season. Rough break for the Giants for sure, because Jung Hoo Lee was their big offseason acquisition, and he had looked pretty good. He's a 25-year-old center fielder, if you haven't watched him, and he dislocated his shoulder. And he's going to need season-ending left labrum surgery, so he's done for the year. The Giants signed him to a 6-year deal for $113 million after he was posted by the Kiwoom Heroes of the KBO. It was the fourth largest deal handed out last offseason, behind Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who both went to the Dodgers, and Aaron Nola. Then it was Lee. It was a big money deal. 6 years, $113 million. So year one was not very good. 37 games, 262 average, 310 on base, 2 home runs, and 158 plate appearances. He did only strike out in 8.2% of his trips to the plate. That's a really low number. He does hit the ball on the ground a lot. He's definitely a singles hitter. And he's an excellent defensive center fielder, but this is a guy now the last 2 years has had his year end early because of a major injury. Last year in the KBO, he played in only 86 games in Korea because he had an ankle surgery that also required surgery. So, this is not his first time with a significant injury. This one was a little freakish. I don't know if you guys caught it, but Sunday, he collides with the wall in center field on a ball by Jamir Candelario. And he looked like he pinned the elbow into the fence, and it caused the dislocation of the shoulder. So he got a second opinion on it. But, man, as soon as I saw it, I knew he was done for the year, because it's a football injury. It's a dislocated shoulder. So all the adhesions, everything's torn in there, has to be repaired. And then, and that's if you have the surgery. If you don't have the surgery, it's all just going to heal together in 7 or 8 weeks. So it's going to require surgery. He's going to have the surgery. And he's expected to, to miss 6 months to rehab from the surgery. So he will be ready for the 2025 spring training, but he's definitely done for the year. Interestingly enough, and kind of maybe a little bit of an ominous note here, he also had a left shoulder procedure done while he was in Korea in 2018. So this is not the first injury to the shoulder. This is the second injury to the shoulder. So hopefully that's not a recurring thing. The Giants have been snake bit with injuries suddenly. They've got 11 players currently on the injured list. So Luis Matos has stepped in at center field. Matos hit 250 last year with 2 home runs in 76 games as a rookie. And, this year was down at AAA Sacramento, or up in AAA Sacramento, and he was hitting 218, and the Giants had to lean on him. I really like Luis Matos' potential, but is he ready is the question. As far as the Giants and their financial commitment to Jung Hoo Lee, he's going to make $16 million next year. And then he makes $22 million in 2026, 2020 in 2027. He'll also make $22 million. And then he's due to make $20.5 million in 28 and 29. He can also opt out after the 2027 season, but I think there's very little chance of him opting out. I mean, we're talking about the Giants overpaid him. They paid him a lot of money, $20.5 million. He's not opting out of that. I don't think anybody's gonna, in a rush to give him that kind of coin. So the Giants have him for 5 more years, and now he's having his second shoulder procedure. Let's talk a little bit about Lee, because I was very skeptical when the Giants signed him, And a lot of people kind of misunderstood that and be like, "Oh, you hate Jung Hoo Lee." Oh my God, nothing could be further from the truth. I just didn't like the idea of taking a $113 million gamble on a KBO player. Just seeing the fact that KBO, in most of the baseball scouts I've talked to, always said, it's the equivalent of high A, double A. And so that seemed, to me, seemed like a major risk. But after watching Lee this year, I think, the thing I would say about him is, first and foremost, he is an excellent defensive center fielder. But I don't care if he's from the KBO, if it was the equivalent of double A, triple A, this guy can play center field. There's no question about it. And not only does he play center field, he plays center field with a lot of confidence. He's got a lot of range out there, and you can tell he's got a lot of experience, and he plays center field with tremendous confidence. It's like you can see the confidence on his face when he's out there. He's totally comfortable. So he's an excellent defensive center fielder by all accounts. One of my concerns that I had was that I thought he would get blown away because he would, the average fastball in the KBO is 88 to 94, and there's all kinds of guys in the big leagues throwing 99, 100, and over 100. But there's no question, when you watch Jung Hoo Lee, he's got major bat speed. So he's an excellent defensive center fielder. He has major league bat speed. He can hit the fastball. There's no question about that. He is a very strong contact hitter. He hits the ball on the ground a lot, but he's a really strong contact hitter. He can bring the bat to the ball, and he can do it with relative ease. Now, he's not a home run hitter. Like, if you watch him, he's going to hit a few. He'll run into a few. But I mean, he's not hitting 15 home runs in the big leagues. He's like a 10 to 12 home run hitter. So I wouldn't even say he's got power. He's got what most scouts would call pop, right? He's got good pop. 10 to 12 home runs, though. That's what you're looking at. And he's not really a base stealer. He's not going to be a big base stealer. I mean, his percentage of steals to caught stealing is not good. And I would say he's at best could steal 10 to 15 bases. So you're not going to hit, more than 10 to 12 home runs. You're probably not going to steal 15 bases, and you're making $19 million a year. If you're going to make $19 million a year, I think you got to play the hell out of center field, and you got to be a big time offensive player. I mean, you got to hit 280, 290, 300, 310. I'm not saying you got to be Ichiro, but you got to be a big time high average hitter. If you don't have a lot of power and you don't have a lot of speed, you got to play really good defense and be a really high average hitter if you're making $19 million a year. So that was my kind of whole point with Lee, is that I thought it was a major risk, and I thought $19 million per year was a dramatic overpay, and I'll stick with that. I still think it's a dramatic overpay. I mean, nothing against him. Maybe that's kind of where the Giants are at right now with free agent bats and the agents and trying to get guys to come to San Francisco. It's just that might be just their reality, that they have to overpay if they want to sign any offensive free agents. So, but 19 million is just too much. Unless if you're going to hit 262, that's too much, even if you're a great defensive center fielder. So if two, and we have reason to believe that even though he finished at 262, that 280, 290, maybe even 300 could be in there. I mean, I liked what I saw about his plate discipline, his strike zone. He knows what he's doing up there. He knows the strike zone. He's got lots of bat speed. He's got a nice flat swing. He looks like the kind of guy who could hit 280, 290. But, this year, obviously, it ends at 262. So we'll never really know what he was going to work to as far as batting average wise the rest of the year. But to me, it's an overpay. I like him. He's a catalyst at the top of the lineup. As I said, he's a great defensive center fielder. He's a really good contact hitter. I just think that he has to be flanked in the corners by some real power bats in that outfield. And the Giants need to get some power from, some non-power spots. And maybe he's a fit, if they can get power from shortstop and Marco Luciano over time, maybe they can carry Jung Hoo Lee without a lot of power in center field. So overall, I would say I was definitely wrong about Lee. I thought there was a very good chance that he would just get challenged down the middle of the plate all day by the hard throwers that reside in MLB, and he would be just a guy that was overwhelmed. He's not been overwhelmed. And he's a better defensive player than I thought he was. He's a smart base runner, despite the fact he's not going to steal tons of bases. He's going to run into 10 to 12 home runs, but there's some doubles potential there. I really like what I see. Is he worth 19 mil? No, he's not worth 19 mil. But that's just kind of the Giants situation. Now, where do the Giants go from here the rest of this year? Because they're not going to have him the rest of this year. They could just play Luis Matos out there every day and just say, you know what? We're going to be in a rebuilding year. Matos is going to play. Ramos is going to play. Luciano's going to play. Casey Schmidt's going to play, and just kind of go young. They could do that. That probably would be the game plan that most people would, advocate for. And then if you look around baseball, there might be some trade options. The Marlins are 14-32. They have Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm would be a really nice center fielder for the Giants if you didn't want to lean on Matos all summer. Jazz Chisholm, I think, is probably gettable. He's not the greatest player of all time, but he's a catalyst. He's got speed. He's got a little power. He's played center field. I mean, that would be a nice pickup. I would love it if they got Jazz Chisholm. That would be fantastic. Then there's Tommy Pham. The Chi Sox are absolutely horrible. They're 14-31. Pham's hitting the hell out of the baseball right now, and he can play center field. They probably should have signed Pham in the offseason just as a guy who can play center field and has some power and some speed. I don't know what he's like in the clubhouse. I know he punched Jock Peterson over fantasy football, but Tommy Pham can play center field, and he can put up some decent numbers. That might not be a bad option. You could bring back Kevin Pillar, who's with the Angels right now, hitting .323. Pillar's swinging the bat really, really well. He's a decent center fielder. We're just talking about stopgap, right? Long term, you're committed to Jung Hoo Lee. Harrison Bader, I think, only signed a 1 or 2 year deal with the Mets. Now, he is a New York guy, but the Mets aren't going anywhere. Maybe they would trade you Harrison Bader. And the Giants had some interest in Bader. I don't know what it would take to get him. I don't know if it's worth spending the money, but Harrison Bader might not be a bad option if you didn't want to go with Matos all summer. The other one, Toronto's kind of out of it, and Dalton Varsho, who used to play for the Diamondbacks, Gary Varsho's kid, who can play, catcher and first and center. He's a great athlete. He's not having a very good year. He might be available in Toronto. He's a good young player. So, just what I gave you there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names of guys that they could go with, or they could go with Luis Matos. And they've had so many injuries, they might need to go get a center fielder and lean on Luis Matos. They may need Matos to play one of the corner spots. With some of the injuries they've had, they may need an extra outfielder. But Jazz Chisholm would be fantastic. I mean, if you could get Luis Robert out of Chicago, that would be incredible. I don't think they're moving him. But Jazz Chisholm out of Miami, Tommy Pham from the Chi Sox, Harrison Bader from the Mets, Kevin Pillar from the Angels, Dalton Varsho from the Jays. All those guys potentially I could see being gettable, but tough break for the Giants. Overall, I would say this, just to sum up, the video and on Jung Hoo Lee. I think definitely the Giants took a major gamble by going after Lee, but there's a lot to like about Lee, and when you watch him play, he is a fun player to watch. And you get the feeling that like he's super advanced in, on defense, and that he's a really smart player. And I think he could be a really good catalyst on a championship caliber club if you had a lineup full of guys who could really thump. If you had guys that could really hit up and down the lineup, and you wanted a guy to take pitches, get on base, play the hell out of center field, run a little bit, be your ignition up top, he could probably do that and maybe even do it at a high level. So overall, I would say I was pleasantly surprised this year by Jung Hoo Lee. Way better defensive player than I thought, way more veteran. Even though he's 25, there's something really veteran about his presence on the diamond. I mean, he really comes across like one of their smarter players, and I'm looking forward to watching him for the next few years. But once again, not a lot of power, not a lot of speed. This is now the second shoulder injury for this kid. You're going to pay him a grip of cash, north of 20 million on the back end, and you got him for the full boat. He's not opting out, so he's going to be here for the next 5 years. From the Giants' perspective, I think long term, you got to hope that shoulder injury is not a recurring situation, and that just this is bad luck and nothing else. Because if he's got a recurring long term shoulder injury and he can't play center field or something like that would diminish his value, and you're on the hook for a lot of money over the next 5 years. On the other hand, I think they got a nice player who I think fits in well. The community likes him, the clubhouse likes him, and he seems like a winning player. And I think he's a much better player. I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong about this kid. I thought he was going to be kind of a minor league guy who was overpowered. Instead, he showed me he's got bat speed, he's got a presence, he's not overpowered. I think if he had not gotten hurt, if you ask me, what do I think he would have? Marty said he would have hit 255 this year. I think that's pessimistic. I would say more like 285. I think he would have finished at about 285 with a good on base and real good defensive numbers in center field. And unfortunately, we're not going to see it. But, once again, Jazz Chisholm, Tommy Pham, Kevin Pillar, Dalton Varsho, Harrison Bader, maybe Luis Matos. Maybe those are the solutions short term. But overall, I'd have to say Jung Hoo Lee I still will hold to my theory that I don't believe he's worth the 19 million. I think that's an overpay, but it's not a crazy overpay. Like he probably deserved like 3 years, 40 million. So I think right around 13 million a year would have been, I think, where they should have paid him. They paid him an extra 6 million a year, and they gave him an extra 3 years. So to me, once again, Farhan got taken by Boris on the actual contract, but nice player and a better player than I thought. Absolutely a better player than I thought, and I got hope that he can be a good player for the Giants in 25 and beyond. But rough break in the short term, and now it'll be interesting to see, what do the Giants do? Does this make them pivot into kind of a rebuild where they go young and trade away some veterans and go with the Ramoses and the Matoses and the Lucianos and the Schmidts and go young across the board? Or do they try to make a trade for a stopgap center fielder and see if they can chase down that final wild card spot in the National League? These are all the options that are on the table for sure. All right. This video is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Aura. And now a word from Aura. Have you ever typed your name on the internet and seen all of your private information is online? Are you tired of receiving tons of spam calls from random numbers? Are you receiving more and more of these as time has gone on? Well, that's where Aura, the sponsor of today's show, can really help you out. Data brokers sell your information to scammers and spammers and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, your email, your home address, all your records, your health records, who your relatives are. It's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use the information to help them access my social media accounts, my bank accounts, or any other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats I can't see. I get other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up, and best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I value my privacy, and I value yours. You can go to the link in the description to start your 2-week free trial. And thanks to Aura for being a proud sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. And thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.